This call is designed to be an introduction call for the people of the United States of America, corporations, their employees, law enforcement, and the 14th Amendment citizens, and the men and women of our armed services. The Republic government, called the Republic for the United States of America, has been lawfully re-inhabited. We are simply law-abiding citizens, peaceful Americans. We are pro-government. You can consider the Republic members are simply anti-corruption. We have fathers, we have mothers, we have sons, we have daughters, we have families just like you. We simply found out some interesting truths in the law, and we've been sharing these truths with a little over 5 years to the American people. So get ready to hear things that sound impossible, and get ready to understand that you too could be a part of history. So we welcome each one of you to the Republic of the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'd like to do is play a reading from our interim president, James Buchanan Geiger.
My fellow Americans, I'm here to tell you about the Republic. Your Republic for the United States of America. In 2010, a miracle happened. Americans from all walks of life banded together and reclaimed our Republic form of government. This is not to be confused with Republican, Democrat, or any other form of political party. Your Republic for the United States of America is already functioning in a lawful, interim, and parallel capacity. Lawful because it has been re-inhabited peacefully and lawfully. Interim because it's functioning in a limited capacity since the American people are not yet represented in mass, and because permanent elections have not yet been held. Parallel because it has not replaced the corporate United States, but is functioning alongside the current government structure. This was lawfully accomplished in order to restore our rights, our liberties, and our freedoms as Americans. If you want more from your government, if you want to be truly free for the first time in your life, if you want your children to enjoy true freedom, then I'm asking you and everyone you know to embrace our long-lost liberties and support your republic. Imagine a country where most of your hard-earned money is yours to keep. Imagine seeing 2% inflation over the next 50 years, like it was when America was founded. Imagine your rights, freedoms, and privacy enforced and upheld in court. Imagine if it was unlawful for anyone to profit from your private information without your written permission. The injustices we endure today are nearly endless. Imagine all of them gone. Imagine politicians actually answering to you. Yes, you heard me correctly. I said answering to you. Not just hearing your voice and ignoring it, but listening and acting on law, not personal agendas. Just imagine going to the polls and having your vote make a difference. Imagine your inherent rights being preserved by government. A government committed to protecting and defending our founding documents. Our founding fathers had a dream of being free, and I believe Americans are still yearning to be free today. You and I are working together and turn that dream, our dream, into reality once again. I believe the American people have the courage to take back their freedom. So let's work together to make the world a better place to live. May God bless you and God bless America.
All right. What's going on, everybody? How you guys doing tonight? Let's see who's in with us. Ryan's with us tonight. How you doing, Ryan? Free Spirit, Molly, be who you are always. Nice to see you guys out with this independent press project. Nice to see everybody here. Yeah, that little excerpt that you guys heard was from the current president of the Republic for the United States of America. If you guys haven't heard of them, I suggest looking them up. They're a group that is equivalent to the original government that was meant to be in place here in the U.S. As you, I guess, as you see by the show title, we're going to go over a few different things tonight. We're calling the show 1776 versus 1871 versus 2017. I've talked to a few people this week and brought up 1871, and a couple of people had heard of it, but interestingly enough, a lot of people haven't, and it was a little bit concerning to me. It's pretty important. It's something that I think everybody should know about, and I wanted to get into it a little bit tonight. But first, we have Eric M in the house with us tonight. What's going on, Eric? How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Whom it may is kicking it with us tonight. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Mr. McBride, I see he's with us. I know he.
All right. I'm here.
All right. Oh yeah. All right. So I kind of want to dive right in tonight. We talk about a lot of stuff on a regular basis, and this is something that I've mentioned to a few people and haven't really gotten any decent feedback from anybody about it. So there's a lingering truth that is absolute, and there's no denying it. It's all documented. The government that we know as the United States of America is in fact not necessarily the government that we think it is.
Gasp.
Yeah. Truth bomb. So 1776, well, you know what? Let me go off of my notes here, because I took some pretty detailed notes, and I want to make sure I stick to that. So, the truth is, we haven't been free people for a really long time. We celebrate the 4th of July in honor of our independence, and we call ourselves free people in the land of liberty. But our anthems proudly sing the praises of the nation, and we wave our flags and we join in song. But how a lot of Americans really have no idea that they're really not free. It's a myth that's perpetuated by the powers that be in order to avoid any major civil unrest and to keep all of us living under the thumb of a militaristic corporate big brother, within the illusions that they've been created for us. The truth of the matter is this: what freedom has not been stolen from us, we've surrendered willingly through our silence and our ignorance. As Americans, most of us have no idea how our freedoms are maintained or lost, for that matter. Apparently our ancestors didn't have a good grasp on this either, and it's sad, but it's very true. You can't point to the Constitution as a symbol of our freedom. It's a representative of a form of government which seemingly no longer exists.
Can I interrupt for a quick second? Everything comes full circle. Our grandparents, our parents weren't afforded the time or the resources that we now have. So that's why it's kind of like our duty to do these things, to I hate to use this word, but to help re-educate or re-stimulate the idea of going back and taking a look and reteaching yourself, or learning more than what you currently know. Our relatives, our fathers, our mothers, our grandparents, they were part of the system before some of them really knew what the system was. They were just busy in that 9-to-5 struggle, and then before that you had then you had free time, you had vacations, you didn't have the internet, and then before that people were post-war hardworking people. They had that core patriotism. They didn't really question their government too much, but they didn't have a lot of reason to, because they were busy working. They weren't really busy passing along information.
And not to mention the fact of how buried it was. I mean, the fact remains that most people in the country remain unaware that it's that it's this way, because they simply don't know, and that falls in line with our grandparents, our parents, and everybody else. It was buried. It's a huge lie, and it's a huge deception, and we just simply don't know the truth and our so-called government isn't going to tell us either.
We've got an opportunity for a renaissance here, and I want to be part of that, and I think the rest of you want to do the same.
I like your choice of words, renaissance over revolution.
Yeah, because it is a renaissance. It's, we're going to have to sit back.
Get your unity sticks out. Put
That's
down
right.
your division stick. Get your unity stick out.
Wait, there's sticks involved now?
After that Antifa guy whacked that guy that time. Where was it, at Berkeley?
I believe that was Berkeley.
Yeah, when he smacked him with that, I was like, they're at one with each other now. That's a unity stick.
Let's dive into it a little bit and see what we can find out. All right, this is one rabbit hole that isn't even the stereotypical meaning of rabbit hole. Going down rabbit holes, we're investigating stuff that could or could not be true, stuff that can blow our minds. But this is something that's 100% true, and it should blow your mind. And by the time we're done with this show tonight, hopefully you guys will be a little bit more knowledgeable on it. We'll be able to share this information with people across the board. But in order to get into it, we're going to have to step back a little bit, to a period really following the Civil War. Let's go back to 1871. That's the beginning of the decline of the Republic. And when we examine what happened during that time in our history, we'll begin to piece together, the puzzle that is our country, America. And only then we'll be able to answer as to whether we're actually free people or not. So let's go back for a moment, and see if we can figure out some stuff that they didn't teach us, or our parents or our grandparents in school. It's pretty interesting, more interesting than what they did tell us. So let's track back a little bit. The date is February 21st, 1871, and the 41st Congress is in session. And let's refer to the acts of the 41st Congress. Section 34, Session 3, Chapters 61 and 62. All right. On that date, Congress passed an act that was titled An Act to Provide a Government for the District of Columbia. And it's also known as the Act of 1871. Now, what exactly does this mean? Well, it means that Congress, under no constitutional authority to do so, created a separate form of government for the District of Columbia, which is a 10 square mile piece of land. Okay. Now, how could they do that? Or why would they do that? Well, let's look at the circumstances of those dates, all right? The Act of 1871 was passed at a vulnerable time in America. Our nation was essentially bankrupt, weakened and financially depleted, after the Civil War. So the Civil War itself was nothing more than a calculated, quote, front for some pretty fancy footwork by corporate backroom players. It was a strategic maneuver by European interests, AKA the international bankers, who were intent, on gaining a stranglehold on the neck of America. So Congress realized our country was in dire financial straits. So they cut a deal with the international bankers, and in those days it was the Rothschilds, who dipping their fingers pretty much in everybody's wallet, and thereby incurring a debt to those bankers. If we think about the banks, we know they don't just lend money out of the goodness of their hearts. A bank isn't going to do anything.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's true. It holds true today, and they're not going to do squat for you unless it's in their best interest to do so. There's been some sort of the collateral, or some string attached, which puts you and me into a subservient position. This was also true back in 1871. So the convening international bankers weren't about to lend our floundering nation any money without some serious stipulations. So they devised a brilliant way of getting their foot in the door of the United States. So they really wanted the United States. They've had their eyes on it. For a while, and they hadn't been able to grasp it thanks to our founding fathers. So they were kind of held in check. But being as vulnerable as we were, they were able to pass the Act of 1871. Which in essence formed the corporation known as the United States. And it's pretty important to start taking certain things into consideration here, as far as as far as little legalities are concerned, like capital letters, for example. The corporation that they formed, the United States, is in all caps. And it's not that way on our original Constitution. So the corporation owned by foreign interest moved right and shoved the original organic version of the Constitution into a corner. With the Act of 1871, the Constitution was defaced in the sense that it was the title of a block capitalized, and the word "for" was changed to the word "of" in the title in the original Constitution. The original Constitution was drafted by our founding fathers, and it was written like this: the Constitution for the United States of America. And the only letters in that line that were capital were the first T in the C in the Constitution and the A in America. Everything else is lowercase. The altered version reads the Constitution of the United States of America in all caps. Everything is capital. And that's a corporate constitution. It is not the same document that you might think it is. The corporate constitution operates in an economic capacity. It has been used to fool people into thinking it has the same parchment that governs the republic, but it's absolutely not. And one is referring to the context of a legal document. Something is, that may be seemingly insignificant, like capitalization isn't. Those minor alterations have led to impacts on each subsequent generation that was born in this country. What the Congress did with the passage of the Act of 1871 was create an entirely new document, get a constitution for the government of the District of Columbia. The kind of government that they created was a corporation. The new and altered Constitution serves as the Constitution of a corporation and not for America. Now think about that for a second. I mean, it doesn't benefit the republic one bit. It serves only to benefit a corporation, and it does nothing good for the American citizens that think that it's the original Constitution that was written by our founding fathers. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? I mean, just the simple fact that the Constitution that we have right now is not what people think it is after 1870. I mean, everything we've learned in school, everything that when we took visits to museums and bought those fake parchment paper constitutions that have post 1871 Constitution stuff all over it. I mean, does that how does that make you guys feel?
I want a refund.
Here's one thing. This was the 42nd Congress, correct?
Yes. This
okay.
is
That's just that's a notable thing for me when it comes to numbers. But Pat, I'm gonna digress out of that. I just wanted to confirm that there was also, I think this was one of 3 acts that was passed, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know one of the other one was the Enforcement Act of 1871, which was, it goes on to a whole nother spread of conversation, which I'm not going to get into right now.
Right. Yeah, each one is down its own investigative path, I assume.
Well, I mean, because remember, this took place in a period of time in history called the Reconstruction era. That's what it was called. There were lots of land grabs that happened during this time. There were still lots of issues with slavery, with the Klan. There were acts that were passed and stuff to protect people. And then also there were loopholes involved that allowed for seizure of land, seizure of property, and in a lot of cases that's what took place. But but again, that's kind of that's it all falls under the same umbrella because you couldn't have had one without the other. And what you spoke of was the act that would have allowed, all that would have allowed this to be able to take place.
Right.
This wouldn't have taken place without that.
Right. Well, let's dive back.
And it was done under the disguise or the guise of basically in our history books, I couldn't say how it was put forth to the people who were there living it. That would be very ignorant of me. But from the history books that that we were brought up on, this had to do with uh, bringing our civil rights about, and the civil rights of African Americans about.
Well,
But that was a farce. That was a farce, though.
yeah, yeah,
So
all of it was. As a
and
matter of fact, it went from us trying to what's the correct word to use, to liberate what America considered to be slaves at that time, to just turning around and making the average everyday citizen a slave, no matter what color you were.
So for all of this stuff and for all of the lying that we've been told inside of school, how do we get this refund?
Well, it's a little difficult, and we'll get into that towards the end of the show.
here,
Um,
I got one way I'm getting a refund. I'm not paying for my kids' school books this year, and the
And,
reason
well,
why is because they weren't given any school books. So I don't see any reason to pay a book rental fee unless you can tell me exactly what that money went to.
yeah, yeah,
and as
that's
you
absolutely
can
true.
see what side I'm playing on this conversation today.
Say that again.
So as you can see, you see what side I'm playing on this conversation today. Just for a little in-depth pieces. Like pretty much I'm doing that so we can go a little bit in-depth more in the conversation so we can get better understanding to people that might not
Well,
understand.
let me keep trucking down this list of points here, because it's going to get us into some stuff that we can talk about, and I just want to get through this first section real quick. All right. And back to the rights. I mean, that's another thing. The absolute rights that we were guaranteed under the organic Constitution, we now have what I guess we could call relative rights, or privileges. One example of this may be the sovereign's right to travel, which has been transformed under the corporate government policy into a privilege instead of a right, which we have to be licensed to engage in. This operates outside of the original Constitution. So, Congress committed treason against the people who were considered sovereign under the Declaration of Independence and the organic Constitution. When we consider the word sovereign, we have to think about what the word really means. And according to Webster's, sovereign is defined as, a chief of highest, supreme in power, superior in position to all others, independent of, and unlimited by, and other possessing or entitled to blah 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 blah, independent authority, jurisdiction. In other words, the government was created by and for sovereigns, the free citizens, who were deemed of the highest authority by, and that's what was most important. That's the definition of being free. When we say to people, come to America, it's free. It's not. It's just not. So, you can look into the Declaration of Independence, where it says government is subject to the consent of the governed. That's supposed to be us, the sovereigns. I mean, I don't feel sovereign nowadays. It doesn't take a rocket science or a constitutional historian to figure out that this isn't what is happening in our country today. Government in these times isn't subject to the consent of the governed. Rather, the governed are subject to the whim and the greed of the corporation of the United States of America. It's stretched its tentacles beyond the 10 square mile parcel of land known as D.C. I mean, it encroaches into every state of the republic. The corporation has no jurisdiction outside of the District of Columbia, and they just want you to think it does. So, you're presumed to know the law. This is, it's pretty ironic, because as a people, we are taught basically nothing about the law in school. We're made to memorize obscure factoids and paragraphs here and there, and such as the preamble, and they gloss over the Bill of Rights, and but we're not told about the law, and we don't know about the corporate, the government, corporate government schools. They don't delve into the Constitution in any great depth. They were put into place to indoctrinate and dumb down the masses for Common Core. I mean, not to teach anything. And actually, me and McBride have been talking about that a lot. The past couple of weeks, we've been really getting into, the different things that our own kids are being taught. The younger generation, the teenage generation, and going into adulthood. Knowing these facts that about 1871, it really starts to make sense why we're hearing the things that we're hearing. We weren't told that we were sold out to foreign interests and made beneficiaries of the debt, incurred by the Congress to the international bankers. For generations, American citizens have had the bulk of their earnings confiscated to pay off a massive debt that they, as a people, didn't incur. There's many things that people haven't been told, and how do you guys feel about being made a beneficiary of somebody else's massive debt, without your knowledge or consent? I don't feel good about it, and I don't think that Americans should keep going along with this. I think that this is something that everybody needs to know, and it needs to be put out there. I don't know. I didn't dive too much into the details of this next fact here, but as far as paying off the debt is concerned, our lives are there's a monetary value put on our lives. They decide how much your social security number is worth at the time that you're born, and how much they think that they can make off of you during the time that you're alive. And those birth certificates and social security numbers are exchanged on a market every year. It's sold to people who hope to be able to cash out when you pass away, and there's money left over. They cash out on that.
For that part right there, can you make what you just said right there as a note so I can come back to that later on?
Yeah, sure. There's a whole nother section of that too. The birth certificates, for example. There's a 3-minute clip of video out there I found, and I wish I had it on the ready right now because I'd pop it up and let you guys watch it. But this guy, when his kid was born, wrote a letter to the state saying that he wished to have the United States of America on the top of the birth certificate put into lowercase letters, so that it would reflect the original republic's constitution. And the letter that he got back saying in 1981, there was a law that was passed saying that because of computers coming out, all certain documentation going through Washington had to be put through the computer system. It was a Securities Act that they had stated to make that happen. And so what that means is your log, your catalog, and they won't let him do it. The letter went on to say that because of that Security Act, the computer self-generates that, and it is what it is, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it. So they put these laws into place to secure that everything is going to fall in line with what they have planned, with what they've set up, and with what nobody, with what everybody's been blind to for over 100 years now. It's not good. When you hear, individuals say that the Constitution is null and void, think about how the government's transformed over time, from a municipal or service-oriented entity to a corporate or profit-oriented entity. We're living under the myth that this is lawful, but it's not. We're being ruled by a de facto or unlawful form of government, and the corporate body of death mongers, the controllers. It's horrible, and it sounds so bad. It sounds like a movie, but it's 100% true. So all right, so let's skip to the next part of this. It goes through the Act of 1871 was set in motion, obviously, in 1871 when it was passed. When they passed it, a series of subtle and overt deceptions were set in motion, all in conjunction and collusion with the Congress, who knowingly and deliberately sold the people down a river. They didn't tell us that in school. They're too busy dumbing the fictional version of history into your brain and mine. By failing to disclose what they did to the American people, the people became ignorant of what was happening. And over time, the Republic took it on the chin, to the point of a knockdown. So 1933, the gold was surrendered. When that happened, the people essentially surrendered their law. The real history is gone. This is why Roman civil law works, and our form of governments today is based on Roman civil law and admiralty maritime law, better known as divine right of the kings, it's called, and law of the seas, respectively. Roman civil law was fully established in the original colonies before our nation began, and it's also known as private and international law. The government that was created for DC via the Act of 1871, it operates under a private international law and not a common law, which was the law of the constitutional republic. It's pretty important to note since it impacts all of us in pretty solid, concrete ways. You have to recognize that the private international law is only applicable within the District of Columbia, not in other states of the Union. There's hundreds and thousands of videos out there on YouTube of people getting pulled over and claiming sovereignty and not being part of the corporation of the United States of America. And almost every single one of them, the cop ends up just giving up and walking away and having a nice day. And these are situations where people don't have it's lagging out on us. Sorry about that, guys. Try resetting your clicking the little cogwheel on the video and turning down your quality a little bit. If it's defaulted to HD, it might lag out on you. I've got my settings down a little bit now, so I don't know if let's see.
That's not how it was meant to be, man. That's just not how life was. It's not what life's about. And I want my money back.
Yeah.
No, that Eric was talking about a refund earlier. No kidding. Well, to be honest, I don't want the money back either because the money's worthless too. I just want to be able to live,
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think that's common between all of us. But what have we done as a species to all of a sudden enslave ourselves? And I'm talking about all of us, even those people that are supposedly at the front of the game or whatever. They're slaves to something. What are they slaves to? That I don't understand where their standards are, where they get this drive from.
Because they don't think like us. We unfortunately, because the way that we've acclimated to the life that we live under the system, we acclimate for what we can do for us and our kids. They think, their grandkids' kids need to have the world. You see, they've just been on this ever quest that it started with railways and territories and kingdoms and these guys being buddy with those guys, and eventually all these people are gonna be just through the 6 degrees of separation theory, you're gonna realize that all these people between six people, they're probably all doing business with each other. I mean, whether they realize it or not. So I mean, that's what kind of deals get put in place, and people have agendas to carry out over their lifetime, to see things through for their next generation and continue on having some form of power or wealth. And when you have wealth, you move and shake things that trickle down to the people like us, so we feel the brunt of it, where they don't. I mean, bottom line, they don't feel the brunt of this.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't even care, though. That's the thing. They don't care.
No, they don't care, because we've known for years that they don't look at us the same way that they look at each other. They don't. They may be able to smile and shake your hand, be friends with you, but when it comes right down to it, they're. It's all about self-preservation. I mean, self-preservation is the key to how we've gotten this far. It's the key to how people survive in the wild. I mean, it's the key to becoming wealthy, and self-preservation of that wealth and that power. And just like anything, stimulating, it's addictive.
Well, let's push down this path a little further, okay?
I have one thing to say,
Mm-hmm.
because in these acts, some of the things that were allowed to happen, um, and so, okay, in a good circumstance, one of these acts was actually used recently, as recent as 1964, which, I mean, you have to kind of gauge gauge time. It really wasn't that long ago that something from 1871 was brought back in court, and it had to do with murder charges and stuff like that. Basically, there was a lot of acts within this that were passed to protect African Americans and freed slaves, quote my quotes over free. But it also stated that the president of the United States had full rights to use the United States Armed Forces within the country to put down any rebellions which took place as a result of these acts.
Sure.
And again, one of these acts was actually titled the Ku Klux Klan Act. So
Mm-hmm.
if you understand what I'm getting at, if there were to be a racial divide in this country that resulted in violence, any one of these could be easily thrown right out there, just like it was in '64, and say, "Hey, this act was passed. You know, you can't do that." And it may serve to actually protect people, but it just shows how a act or a executive order can be followed through with. You know, they're kind of bland when a president passes one and then does nothing with it, and you get curious. You know, why are we kind of already under a state of emergency? Why can martial law already kind of be declared right now if they wanted to? You know, and they're not doing it, you know, and then we think, oh, well, we're just one event away from it, or this or that. This shows right here that, you know, and if you just probably get on Wikipedia and look this stuff up, I'm sure it'll tell you that they were
Not
enforced.
No, not a good idea. Wikipedia, yeah, I actually did a little bit of a comparison research between some of the stuff that I found out by independent people doing this.
They keep it very soft on there when it comes to this stuff. It's
well,
very.
Listen, this is the ultimate deception. Okay, this is the deception that they don't want people to know. This is the stuff that they would shut down the internet for. This is the stuff that they would take to the streets bashing skulls over. I mean, this is the elite's money that they're talking about, and it was set up in such a way to keep us completely in the dark. I mean, think about the different organizations that go along with this corporation, the judiciary, the justice, the treasury. You guys recognize those names, but they're not what they assume to be either. They're all departments that all belong to this corporation, known as the all caps United States. They don't belong to you and me under the corporate, under that corporate constitution. And it's various amendments that operate outside of the constitutional republic. I mean, all right. So the United States Code, let's refer to that, and it's in that also is in all caps. The United States Code, indicating the corporation and not the republic. Title 28, 3002. It's stated unequivocally that the United States is a corporation. Realize too that the corporation is not separate and a distinct entity from the government. It is the government. It's your government. This is extremely important. It's like the corporate empire of the United States. It operates under Roman civil law outside of the Constitution. It's pretty sleazy, and ask your congressman about it. You know what I mean? See what they say. Everybody that's in, I don't know how many people we have in our chat right now, but everybody that's in here should write a letter to your congressman and ask them to explain themselves for 1871. They're fully aware of that deception, and it needs to be made aware that the members of Congress do not work for us. Rather, they work for that corporation known as the all caps United States. But does it really come as a surprise anyway? I mean, this is why we can't get them to do anything on our behalf or answer to us, as is the case with illegal income tax, among many other things. Contrary to popular belief, they're not our civil servants. They do not work for us. They are the servants of the corporate government carrying out its bidding, period. Bottom line, it is what it is. The committees and subcommittees that the Congress has created all work together like a multi-headed monster to oversee the various corporate departments. And you should know that every single one of these that operates outside of the District of Columbia is in violation of the law. The corporate government of the United States has no jurisdiction or authority in any state of the Republic beyond the District of Columbia. Let this sink in for a minute. Ask yourself, could this deception really have occurred without the full knowledge and compliancy of the Congress? Do you think it happened by accident, or you're deceiving yourself if you do? There's no accidents or coincidences here. It's time to confront the truth and wake up from this absolute ignorant, shield of illusion. It's time to wake up. It's time to let people know about this. I'm going to change up the description after this. You guys can come back later and find links. I want to put links for all of these articles into the box. I just did the description box. I just didn't have time to do that prior to the show, but I'm going to come back after the show and put links for all of these articles in there. A couple good videos. You can share this link with some of your friends and see if we can help wake some people up. If one person told one person and they told one person, it wouldn't be long before a lot of people would be asking about this. It wouldn't be long, and maybe, just maybe, we can start to see some things happen.
Okay, so on an individual level, because half of the country is busy out getting a fresh box of Kleenex and new underwear right now, the other half of us, and I'm not dividing half of us based off of the election. I'm just saying there's half of this country is ready to pull its fucking pants up, and half of it's ready to sit in a corner and cry. And unfortunately, some of us just got to do things on an individual basis. And what a lot of people do when they learn this, their first instinct when they really go to take action is to denaturalize themselves. So maybe we could talk for a second about that, about the process of what you would go through to denaturalize yourself, and what not only what that entails, but what possible repercussions could come because of it. Some things I know, some things I don't know, and I'm kind of curious about.
All right. I've got about, so out of about 7 pages, I've got about a page and a half of notes left. So let me plug through here, and this will segue into that, okay? Because that's how I want to end the show tonight. I want to end the show by talking about things that we can do, suggestions that you guys might have in the chat, suggestions that you guys on the panel have, for things that you think that we can do to try to get this out there. And like I said about talking to your people in legislation, they're not going to be happy. They're not gonna appraise you for that kind of information. You're presumed to know the law. They know that you don't know the law, or your history.
They use that as their advantage every single day.
Every single time, because that information wasn't taught to us. No concerted effort has been made to inform us. So, as a sovereign, you're entitled to full disclosure of the facts. As a slave, you're entitled to nothing other than what this corporation decides to give you. At a price, be wary of accepting things, so-called benefits of the corporation of the United States. We're already enslaved enough, I said earlier, you're presumed to know the law, but still it matters not if you don't in the eyes of this corporation. Ignorance of the law is not considered an excuse. It's your responsibility and your obligation as an American to learn about the law and how it applies to you. They count on the fact that most people are too uninterested or distracted or lazy to do so. The people have been mentally conditioned to allow the alleged government to do their thinking for them. We need to turn that around. if we're to save this republic, before it's too late. The all caps United States government is basically a corporate instrument of the international bankers, and this means that you are owned by that corporation from birth to death. The corporate United States also holds ownership of all of your assets, your property, even your children. And it sounds untrue, but think hard about those bills that we pay, all of those various taxes and fines and licenses and fees for your cell phone and tax this and tax that. I mean, they've got us by our pockets. I mean, they've had us by our asses for as long as we've been alive, and our parents and our grandparents too. And in your heart, you guys know that this is true. You're here, you're listening to us, you follow iCitizen, you follow B and Eric and whom it may, and Michael McBride and everybody else, and Dabu and all of us. You guys follow us because you know in your hearts that this is true. So, don't let anybody call you a conspiracy theorist for this. Have the links, save the PDF files on your phone so you can show people. Don't.
Quick thing on that too. Like he just said with the saving the links and PDF files, make sure you download the stuff, because one day they're going to try to get rid of all of it once most people start trying to become awake to it. They're going to try to get rid of it. And if you have the proof to provide, because it won't be as easily available online as it is right now, that'll be key.
It'll be absolute key. And like I said, I'll come back after the fact and I'll post links, and I'll try to post links directly to these PDF files so that you guys can download them directly from there. There are some that I already have, and if you guys can't find them or you want one, just get a hold of me on Mike Robertson on Twitter. Send me a message, and I will email you a copy of these articles, these things that we're talking about. With the Act of 1871 and all the other legislation. Such as the purportedly ratified 14th Amendment, our once great nation of sovereigns has been subverted from a republic to a democracy, and everybody needs to know that. It's like it was under Roman civil law. Our ignorance of the facts has led to our silence. I mean, think about that. The ignorance of our facts has led to our silence. Our silence has been constructed as our consent to become beneficiaries of a debt that we didn't incur. I mean, it's crap. The sovereign people have been deceived for hundreds of years into thinking that they remain free and independent, when in actuality we continue to be slaves and servants by the corporation. Treason was committed against the people in 1871 by the Congress, and this could have been corrected through the decades by some honest men, assuming that there would have been some, but it wasn't, mainly due to the lust for money and power. There's nothing new there. Are we supposed to forgive and justify this crime against the people? I don't think so. We've lost more freedom than we may realize due to corporate infiltration of these so-called government. We'll lose more too unless we turn away from a democracy that is the direct road to disaster, and restore our constitutional republic, what we've been led to believe that we live under. I'm saddened to think about all the brave men and women that were killed in the world, the wars and conflicts instigated by the controllers, and the courageous souls that fought for the preservation of ideals that they believed to be true, not for the likes of a corporation. Do you guys believe that any one of these individuals would have been killed or gone off to war willingly, and would have willingly fought if they'd have known the full truth about this? If any of you are veterans, would you have gone to war if you'd have known that you were fighting for a corporation just to, so your family and future generations were going to have to pay unbelievable amounts of taxes and not be free? I'm not a veteran, but I would be, I wouldn't be happy about it. I wouldn't be happy about it. You guys
I don't think they would have. I don't think they would have, man. And it is sad to see even the young kids that, you know, they're hunted down by these recruiters in high schools everywhere. They were there when I was there. They're still there. To send them off to fight this war over over false pretenses.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, if the people had known long ago to what extent their trust had been betrayed, I wonder how long it would have taken for another revolution. You know, what we need is a revolution in thought. You know what I mean? We need to change our thinking. We need to change our world. You know, we need to change the way that we think, and not necessarily take to the streets with pitchforks, but take to the streets with knowledge. Take to the streets with, you know, you can't hide it from us. You know, we that's why, you know, the Republic for the United States of America .org is a really good website to check out. There is a movement out there. They have you know, weekly phone conference Senate sessions that you can sit in and listen on the phone. They have representatives in all 50 states. They have things worked out with other nations that know that they exist and what they're trying to do, that back them 100%. There is a president, you know, there is a vice president, there are senators. You can get involved right from the website. You can get involved. You know, it is a true, real government that is in the interim stages of trying to take it to the higher levels. And then they started it back in 2010, so it's not that old. You know, it's specifically because of this. So I encourage everybody to check it out. It's the Republic of the United States of America.org, and definitely look into it. You know, I just, I mean, are we ever going to be able to restore the Republic? Yeah, it's a question I can't answer yet. I hope so. And I pray that we, the sovereign people, can work together in a spirit of cooperation to make it happen in this lifetime. You know, I know I'm going to give it my best shot. You know, come what may, regardless of what happens, our children deserve their rightful legacy, the liberty, you know, that our ancestors fought so hard to give us. You know, yeah, I mean, are we going to maintain silently, you know, telling ourselves that we're free and perpetuate the myth to our kids and our kids' friends and our family, or do we stand as one, as sovereign people, and take back what's been, you know, stolen from the house of the Republic? You know what I mean? It's something to think about, and it's a big something to think about. You know, it's called our freedom. You know, if we're stupid enough to surrender our freedom to a bunch of lousy international bankers, then we deserve to live in bondage. That's a quote from Lisa Guliani, and I think it's a great quote. If we're stupid enough to surrender our freedom to a bunch of lousy international bankers, then we deserve to live in bondage. You know, and with that kind of wraps up my explanation of 1871. You know, it's there. The deception is real. There's a lot more to it. There's way more in-depth stuff that we can get into. You know, like Mr. McBride said, there were other laws that were passed, other stuff that was passed by Congress in 1871 that coincide with this. But the Act of 1871 is the big one. That's the big one that gave away our republic government to a corporation that exists specifically to you know, bleed us for every dollar to pay back international debt that was incurred during the Civil War and so on and so forth, and in other wars. You know, the national debt is being kept high. Look at the national debt levels when Obama was president. Wasn't it something like double what it was before him? I mean, it's insane. Like the national debt shoots up, and it's the taxes that need to pay for it, and you know, it's nauseating, and it upsets me. And you know, I hope that you guys you know, learned a little something about this tonight. So, you know, what can we do? What can we do to try to do something about this, to at least for ourselves? there is a process to gaining your sovereignty back. Mr. McBride, have you done any research on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've looked into it before. I mean, the things that I know about it are, uh, basically, if you were to become what's called a stateless person, or a person without a country, by renouncing, yeah, so by renouncing your citizenship, for one, is generally irreversible. Two, most states won't let you do it. Without establishing another, so in other words, another country that you'd like to be nationalized to. What it comes down to, if you become a stateless person, that has no U.S. citizenship here, you're not going to be able to do a lot of anything. So you better be prepared to be pretty much off grid. In the way of, you're not going to be getting a driver's license, you're not going to get, anything from a
You're
bank,
gonna,
you're not going to get,
and not even just that.
you're not going to be able to
When
fly on a
when
plane,
you
you're not going
don't,
to be able to get a passport to leave if you don't
and not even
nationalize
just that
yourself as
though,
something else before you
but
leave.
but when you do that, you don't have any identification anymore that's official.
Exactly.
You
And so
can't
if they
even go and
take
get
if
a job.
yeah, so not only that, if you happen to be arrested afterwards, there's almost no way to say what would happen to you, which is probably part of the reason why states don't allow it, because they could potentially indefinitely hold you with nowhere to send you, because to release you back in public. Okay, another thing I know about it is, if you renounce your citizenship, uh, here stateside, uh, you're probably gonna be watched very closely.
Yeah.
If you renounce your citizenship and you're abroad, and or you announce your citizenship and go abroad, uh, the FBI keeps a database of these people, and I'm sure they monitor them. So if you're a type of person that doesn't want to be, you know, um doing things to set off alarm bells because you just want to be left alone, it's not the way you're going to go about that. You're not going to get away from the system that's at hand by running from it. And
Well, I mean,
and then to add to that, most of the people who do this do it for tax exemption reasons.
yep.
And what's done in the meantime to skirt that, because the government corporation does not want anybody really to leave, which serves the reason why they would want to cram it more full. Uh, it used to be around like about $500 to get, like $450-$500 to get rid of it, and they've raised it up like to around $2,500 to do all the paperwork and the fees and everything that goes along with it, and that's like substantially higher than any other country. So the reason why is because they've got to make it high enough to where it's actually money out of a rich person's pocket. But I mean, if you think about 23,000 $50 is what I just googled as I was kind of trying to talk. 23 or $2,350, I'm sorry, is really nothing. So that doesn't really stop, rich people from doing this. It stops normal people from doing this.
Right. You guys see these statistics here?
For the cost, just think about for the cost of a good family vacation. Okay.
Right. Right. And it used to not be that way. Back in,
Yeah.
I think it was like 2010 or 2011, or right around the same time that the Republic of the United States of America, government started. There was a video that went viral. It was a guy that was in a judge's chambers, and he had been called in for something, I forget what. But he showed up out of respect. But his only words to her was, "I'm a free man. I'm not, a member of the corporation of the United States of America." And ultimately, she argued with him, and he ended up being able to walk walk out without getting in trouble. And there was a spike. So I think it was only a couple $100 to renounce your citizenship back then. But but right after that video went viral, it shot up to somewhere around 2,500, whatever you said it was. But if you look at the chart that I have up on the screen right now, these are the U.S. citizens that renounced their citizenship from 2008 to 2016. And you can see that it's on a steady incline. 2008, there was literally like only 300, 400 people. 2009,
You
like
do know there's nothing on the screen, right?
that you guys can see. But if are you looking at the show
Yeah,
screen?
there's nothing on the screen.
Why is there nothing on the screen?
Okay, so did you happen to come across anything that showed an income bracket related to that coincided with the people who renounce their citizenship? Because if a majority of those people were, worth more than, say, $1 million, or happen to be owners of companies that were, netting over $1 million, we'll just do that as a small baseline because it's not that much money for a company. And I would venture to say you'd probably have to be in more like the $30 to $50 million range before you'd ever even consider something like this. But to do that, to see it go up, one thing that matches what you just described, what you were saying wasn't popping up on the screen. What matches that is the increase in millionaires across the country. So if you put the graph of how many people have become millionaires in the last 10 years or whatever, chart that pops up, because I'm sure there is one, you're probably going to see a lot of similarity in that curve, or how many people became billionaires in the United States in the last 10 years, and see which one of those matches it.
Right. And 2016 was another breaking year. According to this article, the Treasury Department announced that 5,411 Americans renounced their citizenship in 2016, and it's substantially more than 2015. But think about it this way: so there's a difference between renouncing your citizenship and being part of we'll call it an information movement. Okay, we'll call it people realizing that we're supposed to be governed by a republic government and not and not the type of government that we have now. If and when that happens, then everything would be fixed anyway. There would be a new banking system. There would be a new way to travel. There would be a new way to get papers for certain things that you needed to do. But the government would have to be in place. It's all about the big picture here is the replacement of the corporation of the United States of America for the republic for the United States of America. And that's what the founding fathers envisioned for this country. That's where the true freedom comes from. And until everybody sees this and hears this and believes this and respects what happened and the lies that were told, nothing's going to change. You can renounce whatever you want. Renouncing your citizenship now and not having we'll call them, as crappy as they are, the benefits of the corporation of the United States of America, and not having the appropriate government in place would be like a double whammy to the things that you can get accomplished. So
yeah, that's what I wanted to throw an extra scoop of ice cream on there real quick. Yeah, if think about it like this: if our heavy hitters, and when I say that I mean like our militias, our returning vets, the people that are probably going to be the quickest to actually stand and defend and have blood drawn on them. In the case of a worst case scenario, what I see is if you think about it as an individual, people that have seriously looked at this country and the government and the corporation that it is and the cattle-like position that you play in it, when you look at it like that, if you as an individual saw all the people who have been aware of this jump ship and run, who would be there to help educate you, guide you along, and then lead the um, educational movement of the people to stand together over bloodshed, because those are the core people who understand how important not having bloodshed is to getting things accomplished. Because if you look at where returning vets come back from, a lot of the times they'll look on the news and I'm sure they see it's just as bad as it was when they were there, maybe even 10 years ago. Maybe there's a bad example of that and say, Vietnam, which is a major tourist destination, by the way, now. But that took a very long time to happen. Those things aren't going to happen for Iraq or Afghanistan. Those countries are going to continue to suffer and suffer, and that teaches you the lesson that bloodshed isn't always going to be the best way to get something accomplished, and we're going to have to talk and educate each other and tell people about things like this. To me, unfortunately, this is kind of mundane. But that's just because I've kind of been awake to it for long enough to where, when my daughters were born, I'm thinking, can I tell this nurse not to put their footprint down? That it's none of their business. That's their private information. Can I say I don't want a social security number for my child? No, I can't.
Right. There are laws in place.
You can't. And if you in the system, if you try to go against that, there's rules and regulations that have been put in place, and as an individual, you will not succeed.
Nah, you know what though? I must step in and I must argue here, okay? Regardless of what can or cannot happen based on what laws are in place, there is no reason that we should not continue to try.
That's what I completely agree. What I'm saying is, if say for instance you want to homeschool your child, or you don't want to vaccinate, or trying to do something in the hospital, like not let them take footprints of your child, that's not gonna go over well for you. I don't care who you are. Asking to be vaccine exempt.
Well,
there's certain ways to go. Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to use as an example.
Yeah,
there are ways to go about it. However, be prepared. It's going to take a lot of work. Don't be discouraged. Don't feel alone. There are people that have done it, and I don't want to say don't fight the fight. What I want to say is don't try to go about it completely alone. There's people out there that have done it, and you need to find somebody that has done it successfully. That way you don't run into when they try to stonewall you, you're already prepared for it. I can't put that information out there. I don't have it. I don't know it. I don't know how to unstonewall a cocky doctor.
Well, here's my challenge. Here's my challenge to everybody. Let's figure out one area in our lives where we feel taken advantage of, where we feel like we could do something about it. Whether it's your kids getting vaccinated, just to make a point. Whether it's your kids getting vaccinated, whether it's joining the Republic government, whether it's telling a friend or telling a family, whether it's sharing a link for this or sharing a link for a video that explains 1871. There are things that we can and we should do to go out there to let it be known. Very much like McBride said, do not, and in no way am I advocating any sort of violent way to deal with this. Don't take to the streets with your pitchforks, people. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, stand up to that school district, that superintendent that says that your kids have to be vaccinated to come to school. Well, no, they don't. And if you figure out what it takes to not make that happen. You learn your rights. Read the articles. Read every little bit of information that you can on this one particular subject, the 1871 subject, to learn and to know and be able to factually explain to people what's going on and how it works.
Okay, now you're absolutely right. I agree 100%. You got to think 50%, and I'm not arguing with you because I agree. 50%, we'll just do that as an average because, in my opinion, everything in life is 50-50. Nothing's guaranteed. And so there's 50% of the people out there that don't have kids. So they're like, well, this doesn't fucking apply to me.
Sure, it does. You're paying taxes.
Well, okay, I get that. But I'm talking about they don't have kids. So they don't have that emotional thing. You know, maybe they have a niece or a nephew.
Well, it needs to be made emotional. It needs to be made emotional that the Republic is dead.
Yeah, okay. But what I'm saying is there's another. Now, while parents are busy dealing with the fight that we have to fight, okay, to try to raise our kids amongst a society that's, you know, our grandparents used to say it's going to hell in a handbasket. It's more disgusting than that. So what I'm getting at is I'm not completely anti-vaccine. I think vaccines could be done in a much safer fashion.
Oh, absolutely, and that's a whole nother show for a whole nother time.
It's a whole nother show for a whole nother subject. But what it is it's a piece of meat for people to chew on who don't have kids, who may have kids in the future, who may want to look at solving the problem, or looking at that side of it. I mean, we can't look at, I can't look at everything, you can't look at everything, Eric can't look at everything. It's a community effort.
And that's the reason
of the community, you have people who work in science fields, people who work in medical fields, people who don't have a job. Just because you don't have a job doesn't make you any less important than that scientist. You can still use your skills to get on a computer, to go and learn things, to look up patents. If you don't understand something, go find the background to that and start researching it. If it takes math and you don't understand math, go on Khan's Academy, KHAN Academy, and any math question you have, you can pretty much type it in and get a very good explanation of it.
I see where this sponsorship went to.
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Okay.
All right, and let me piggyback off of that to wrap up the show for tonight, if you don't mind. You know, it is all about knowledge, McBride. There is no lack of stuff to learn, and it is very in depth. You know, there are a lot of different things that we could branch off the tree of the corporation of the United States of America. But you know, anything that we're subject to, okay, whether it's vaccines for our kids, whether it's our driver's licenses, whether it's having to, you know, in Pennsylvania, I have to get my car inspected every single year before they say it's okay that I drive it on the road and don't have to get a ticket in order to do so. You know, every little aspect from every single branch of government after 1871 has been 100% corrupted and is not a part of the Republic. It is not a part of the original Constitution that we believe that 99.9% of this country believes that they are still under. That's the big thing here. So you know, these laws that are in effect that say that we have to have our kids vaccinated, these laws that are in effect that say we have certain that they can arrest us for certain things and give us tickets for this, and you know, you can't have rose bushes in one area of a community because you know the law of the county says this and that. Every single little thing that it exists after 1871 is an illegal law. It is an illegal lie. Okay, all of it, every single bit of it. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and we can go ahead and call it quits for the night. You know.
Okay, that note, hold on, McBride.
Go ahead, my bad.
That note that I told you to write down, Mike, do you have that really quick?
Yeah, kill some time for a second, because B said that he was going to jump in a few minutes, so I figured if we stayed live for maybe 10, 15 minutes, I was
going to say, since Mike wants to end this, and we are going a little over the hour, we could continue this over on my backup channel, because I want to go on a rant with that note that Mike had.
All right.
Go ahead and say the note really quick, Mike.
You know what? I highlighted it, but I accidentally clicked somewhere else on the page, and it took the highlight off. so I'm not exactly sure which one, but we'll talk about it in the hangout prior to going live on your channel. Okay.
Okay.
We'll find it. All right?
If you're going to be ending it now, I guess you can expect me to go live at 10:45 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
And
yep,
yeah,
Eric.
it's going to be another good episode. So make sure you check out.
Yeah.
Can we get a hint?
It was about the we'll talk about it.
Okay.
We'll talk about it.
All right. Well, I guess if the audience wants to find out, they're gonna have to quickly go back and fast forward through to probably about 30% into the show. Right around there, you're gonna find Eric saying something about highlight that. And then you'll have a sneak peek. And not only that, the view count will double.
Awesome. Well, guys, listen, I really appreciate you guys listening to this. Please subscribe, please hit the thumbs up button, and please share this video, with your friends and family, or find the video. I found a couple that are short, under 10 minutes, bullet point descriptions, just to start waking people up. Once enough people start to wake up, we can get together. And please, like I said, please check out, Republic for the United States of America.org and their purpose, their meaning, what they're doing, why they're doing it. It is an existing government. We can call it a government that's ready to take hold, that holds the values of our forefathers, and that holds the Constitution of pre-1871. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. McBride, whom it may, Eric, thank you guys so much for being on this panel with me tonight. And Rebecca, Free Spirit, Amy, Jay, everybody in the chat, Nash. I really appreciate you guys hanging out. I saw Danny was in there earlier. I saw B popped in there. Thank you guys for sticking around to listen to this. Ryan, Independent Press Project, be who you are always. All of you guys, thank you for chilling with us tonight. And everybody be safe. Tomorrow, let's see, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Thursday. That's you, whom it may, right? That's smothered and covered experiment, right?
No.
Listen. I know it's wrong, but that's what they call French fries on the East Coast when you get them with gravy, is smothered and covered. So I'm going with smothered and covered. Now, why don't you tell us when your show is tomorrow?
You've never been to Waffle House, I guess.
Hey, it's the Scattered Smothered Experiment. You guys can look up the channel if you'd like. Actually, I'll drop that in the chat. But that's hosted by myself and my brother Cliff, and we just talk all kinds of nonsense about all different types of topics. Y'all come by and check it out.
Beautiful. And of course, Friday night Underground World News on either W77 or Casey's Under the Stars channel. Saturday, Be Rich with After Hours on Be Rich Official on his YouTube page. And I believe that's 10 o'clock. I know it can vary, so make sure you follow everybody on Twitter for notifications. Sunday, we usually do the Truth Lounge around 1:30, but I know that's floating, back and forth right now on whether we're going to do it, which channel we're going to do it on. But we'll let you guys know. Again, follow on Twitter at I'm Mike Robertson, and you'll get notifications for all of the shows. Also follow at iCitizen_news for all of the news articles that everybody takes the time to write up at iCitizennews.net. And everybody have a great night. Be safe.
SoundCloud.
Oh yeah, SoundCloud. That's right. You guys just you took the time to put that together this week. All of the shows that we do are being turned into podcast format, and there's a SoundCloud for that. Bobby, what's the backslash for SoundCloud?
Oh, that's still being worked out, but I'll drop a link in the description box. So
okay. Right.
There's not a permanent URL that we can go by at the moment. I think after we get a certain amount of followers, I think that's when we're able to do so. But with it being relatively new, I don't think it'll take long for that to grow. The thing about SoundCloud is I've set it up to where you can download the files and listen to and have it on your device. That way you can listen without using your data.
And even some people I know that watch our shows that don't even have internet in their homes and just go to cafes or whatever and listen to our streams. this is a perfect way for you to download them and listen to them at home.
Right.
Yeah.
You're inside of those situations.
Yeah. All right, fantastic. Well, that's where the audio links can be found for all of the shows, and we're going to work up another. Hi, Lee. I see you made it in there. Nice to see you.
Lee, come in the chat.
Yeah, she popping in at the last minute here. But like Eric said, guys, we're going to bounce over to Eric M2, and I think Bobby threw that into the chat just a few minutes ago. Probably around 10:45. Give us a chance to grab a drink and start fresh, and we can get into to some of the other things that we were talking about. But as far as this particular show is concerned and this particular subject, I really appreciate you guys listening. This is a very, very important topic that everybody needs to know about. And people aren't going to want to listen, and they're going to call you crazy. And we all know that already, but you're here because you believe it. You're here because you know it to be true. This isn't one of those theories. This is reality and the way it is. So
you're right. And I wanted to say thank you for having me on here real quick before
you're welcome.
And
you're welcome, Mr.
I had something a while ago, years back, 6-7 years ago, that's in one of my tattoos, and it's basically it's a character that I came up with that's basically a head with a digital antenna coming out at the neck, and they all look alike, and I call them drones. And I have a picture that I drew that each one of them's putting out a signal to an antenna like a Gwen tower, and each one of them saying something different, but they all look exactly alike.
Well, maybe that's your secret Wi-Fi connection to the Russian servers.
Well, so each one of them has an expression in the picture, and it says "I'm a woman," and the other one says "I'm a man," and the other one says "I'm an artist." And the fact of it is they're all the same, and they're all little floating heads. And so I have a tattoo that says "anti-American drone" on it. And a lot of people think that I'm referring to a drone like a Reaper or a flying drone. I'm referring to a human drone. Don't be a human drone. Be human and act human, and things will start to become more clear.
That's right.
So that's why if you ever see me say anti-American drone, that's what I'm saying. Wake up, teach yourself something, learn something. Don't do it because I told you to do it. I hope you want to do it already.
Yeah.
I hope that and if you're here, then you probably already do. So I'm probably speaking to somebody who's gonna catch this show for the first time. And to that person, don't be scared to learn something you don't know, or to admit that you don't know everything. We all gotta take that energy and humble ourselves, and be willing to actually read. That's one thing you're gonna have to do, is you're gonna have to read. You can't just read the title to an article and expect to know everything just based off that.
Absolutely. All right. And on that note,
it takes time.
And on that note, we're going to call it a night. Thank you for that final thought, Mr. McBride. Eric M2 channel will probably go live around 10:45.
Yes.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, everybody, once again for joining me. Thank you, everybody in the chat. And everybody have a wonderful night. Be safe. It's kind of a long outro tonight, but you know what? Give it a listen. And everybody have a great night. All right? Much love. Love all you guys. Be safe.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, survival of our nation, if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.